So it puts the standard deduction for joint filers, married filing jointly, at $31,500, which is quite a high number.
The estate and lifetime gift tax exemption will increase to $15 million for individuals or $30 million for married couples, and was made permanent and will adjust for inflation.
Tipped and overtime workers will receive a deduction. So tips up to $25,000 can be deducted. This is limited to income of $150,000 for individuals and $300,000 for married filing jointly. Hello, welcome back.
Hello, great to see you again, as always.
Lovely to see you too, as always, my dear Atricia. Welcome back, everyone, to the Love Fest that is Living Richly with Curo. This is episode 64. We are so happy to have you back if you are a regular OG listener, and we're also super happy to welcome you if this is the first time you are tuning in. We love all of you, and we appreciate all of you so much. And today's episode is what we're calling One Big Beautiful Bill Act for Real. And the reason we're calling it for real is because a few episodes ago, when the House version of, we're just going to call it OBA for purposes of this episode, because I just can't say One Big Beautiful Bill Act over and over again. So moving forward, it's OBA. And when the House version of OBA was passed, we came on and did a little summary, but now it's officially law. It made its way through the Senate, back to the president, and it is official law. So we are going to fill you in on some of those highlights today. And if you are just tuning in for the first time, we love empowering, inspiring, and educating all of you on your financial journey. So that is our mission here on the podcast on Living Richly with Curo, but also what we do in our everyday lives as financial advisors.
Yeah, we love being able to offer education, keep you guys in the know of what's happening.
Exactly, informed. Yeah. So before we get into a quick catch up, as I mentioned last week, 84% of you all who listen regularly, for some strange reason, have not hit that subscribe button. So if you've ever gotten value in the 63 previous episodes that we have recorded now, do us a favor and just hit that subscribe button or the follow button, depending upon where you are listening or watching, because it really does help the show, helps other people find us. And the more people that find us, the more value we can add to you all. So if you all could do us that favor, hopefully we'll continue to bring you even better content in the future. Please and thank you.
Thank you in advance.
Exactly. All right. So now for our A-team catch up, and you have to go first today. Especially because you're about to go on vacation. So you best be like rainbows and butterflies today.
Yeah. I mean, no, I'm feeling good. I'm in that weird, but this is, I think, a me thing, but I'm in that weird pre-vacation phase where I'm excited, but then there's always this little like rumble of anxiety about all the things I need to make sure to remember to do. And in true Atricia fashion, I have waited till—
Hold on, let me guess. You haven't packed. Haven't packed. How did I know?
So I was talking to my sister this morning because we're checking in for the flights, and she's like, "Have you even tried to pack? Have you considered packing?" And so to my credit this time, I have at least started to gather the things. So there's not a suitcase. A suitcase has not entered the chat yet, but there is a chair that has just got things that I intend to take. So in my
progress.
world, that's progress. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, like I stumble across something, I'm like, oh no, I want to remember to pack that. So I have to sit it somewhere separately. So at least I've done that part. But I am very excited. I'm going to get it all done. I mean,
Yeah,
I may be
always. You always pull it
exhausted.
off.
I may be exhausted by the time I get to the airport in the morning, but that's fine. I'm going on vacation. I'll be able to get some rest.
Yeah, you'll be fine. You
yeah.
can sleep on the plane if you need to.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I
Yeah.
am super excited, but I'm still like, holy crap, there's like a laundry list of things I still need to do before I leave here tomorrow morning. But all
Yeah.
good. It'll happen. I'm just trying to stay calm, calm the anxiety, and just focus on the excitement of like where I will be, in about
Mm,
24 hours.
yeah.
Yeah.
So jelly. So jelly. It's going to be amazing. Do you use like a checklist for packing, or do you just kind of go off memory of like thinking about what you need to put in your suitcase once you pull that out?
Yeah, you think way too highly of me, Anne, if you think I actually have a checklist. I think for me though, because I have traveled so much this year and over the last year, like I told you, there are certain things that I just have that are now travel ready. So I have like
Yeah.
a toiletry bag that's just all the travel size or mini versions of my personal hygiene items, skincare. At this point, I've just invested in the travel size version of all of them.
Yeah.
So a lot of those things are kind of already pre-packed, just like they're already
Yeah.
kind of ready to go, make up. And then everything else, I just have to like walk through a mental list of the things I need. The biggest thing on this trip is not to forget the passport, right? So it's like
Oh my gosh.
it's
Yes.
sitting on the table, like the dining table. So it's like you cannot forget this. And when I get home today, it's going to be like keys on top of the passport. So
Yeah, yeah,
that the
yeah,
last
for
thing I
sure.
grab before I walk out tomorrow, I'll make sure to throw it in my bag.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So when we went to the dude ranch a few weeks ago, I still don't have
Mhm.
the real ID. Like it's been on my
Oh,
list forever.
really?
I know. So, and now you have to travel with it, except for if you have a
Yeah.
passport. And I literally almost forgot to pack my passport because we were traveling domestically. So it wasn't even
Yeah.
on my radar until I was like, oh my gosh, I need the passport for instead of the real ID. So yeah, that's one of those things,
Yeah.
but
No
smart to
judgment.
have it out.
Yeah. I hate the DMV, so I get why you haven't done it. I just had to renew my driver's license in December for my
Oh, okay.
birthday.
So
So
you
it kind
were,
of forced
yeah.
me into, yeah, the real ID world.
Yeah, it's on the list, but it just keeps getting like pushed further and further down because who can be bothered?
Right. You'll get to it. I mean, or at least I know you have a flight in November. So sometime between now and November, you'll figure it
Yeah, I have another flight in September, so we'll
out.
see.
Okay.
It's all good. We'll figure it out. Otherwise, I'll just keep traveling with my
Keep
passport,
traveling with the passport for sure.
which is fine. Yeah, gives my passport some action, which it's otherwise not getting.
Yeah.
So there's
It
that.
will eventually, of course.
Yeah,
All righty. So
yeah.
what's going on in your world, my dear?
Oh my gosh, I don't really have anything exciting. It's this week is a little nutty.
Hmm.
My kids are in two different places this week. So goalie is still working at a camp at where he plays hockey, and then Little Messi is what we're calling him now, right? Little
Hmm.
Messi. Little Messi has decided he wants to take a baseball camp. He doesn't play baseball. Now he plays baseball. So he's at a baseball camp, like literally on the other side of town.
Of course.
So in another county, actually, to be
Because
clear,
why could it be
because
convenient and close?
why? Yeah. And of course, camp gets out at 1 p.m. because like people don't have to work, right? They're just supposed to shuttle their kids everywhere all day long, apparently. So it's been a little crazy, but thank God for his friends' moms and
Hmm.
dads, frankly, who are totally helping me out, like picking them up, taking them to the pool, just being amazing. It takes a village kind of
Yeah,
people.
for sure.
So yeah, that's my week. It's been a little bit of a struggle with the juggle kind of week. And it's like, it's summer, so it feels just wrong.
Yeah.
It feels wrong. It's supposed to be like chill and relaxing summer, and it feels like my hair's on fire. So
Yeah. I get that feeling. I said that yesterday because, we kind of intentionally slow down a little bit, like with our meeting schedules and things here at Curo. But I was literally in a meeting from the time I walked in yesterday till about 3 o'clock. And I'm like, this definitely doesn't feel like the
yeah,
summer pace I'm supposed to be on.
no,
Like, what have I
no.
done with my calendar this week?
Yeah, exactly. And then you lob on top of that the fact that we're hiring for
Oh,
30% of our team right now. And this lovely OBA that we are about to talk about, which obviously, part of our job is making sure that we understand the changes and most importantly, that we can translate advice to clients. And it's like, awesome, just
yeah.
add it to the list.
So now I'll just do, 4 hours of webinars trying to understand what's happening in
Exactly.
the OBA.
Yeah, exactly. Just blob it on top. So, anyway, we will get through it, y'all. Promise. If anybody else out there feels this kind of crazy energy, we see you, we're with you, we're in it together, and this too shall pass.
Yeah, gotta believe that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right, so let's get into this lovely OBA as we promised that we will. So as we mentioned earlier, the bill has officially been signed by President Trump. It was signed on July 4th after a lot of drama back and forth, which we don't have time to get into today. Just know there was drama, and but it made it through. It made it through. So, included in the laws are changes to taxes, which for today's purpose, that is really what we're going to be focusing on. But also, there were some changes to federal spending and funding for the administration's priorities, as well as a 5 trillion with a T trillion dollar debt ceiling increase. So, for most people, the good news here from a tax standpoint is that you will not face higher taxes in 2026, or really starting January of 2026. And there are some additional tax relief provisions, which we will talk about today, many of which were campaign promises that actually did get through. So the final bill was about 870 pages. So on today's episode, as I mentioned, we are going to focus on some of the most important aspects that impact most of our clients. And then next week, we will continue with some additional changes. And so stay tuned to the end of today's episode because we will share with you exactly what we're going to be talking about next week. So before we get into some of the straightforward aspects are the ones that we're going to start with. Let me remind you that some of the things that we're going to share with you today, we're going to use the word permanent. And let me just put a little asterisk and caveat on that word because nothing is really permanent, right? Congress, as we have seen many times in history, can decide to change tax laws. This is something that happens relatively frequently. So just when we say permanent, know that what we're referring to is some of the provisions were those campaign promises that President Trump made on the campaign trail. So those have expiration dates when he is no longer president. So that's kind of the distinction. When we say permanent, it means that they will not expire once Trump is out of office. If we say these are temporary and they expire in 2028, that's really what we're talking about. But just know when we say permanent, it's not really for real permanent.
Right. I think that's a very important note. We don't mean forever and always.
Exactly. Exactly. So let's talk about some of the most straightforward changes. First of all, the lower tax brackets that were introduced back with the TCJA, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, were made permanent. There's that first permanent word, preventing a tax rise for most folks, most taxpayers that was going to go into effect in January. So that's number one. Those lower tax brackets are quote unquote permanent now. The higher standard deduction, which was also introduced with the TCJA in 2017, was also made permanent, quote unquote, and it was enhanced. So there were additional amounts added for individuals, joint filers, and heads of households starting in 2025 this year. So this is a provision that starts this year. So it puts the standard deduction for joint filers, married filing jointly, at 31,500, which is quite a high number, and at 15,750 for individuals. And then the next thing that was increased was the child tax credit. So that went up to 2,200 starting again this year in 2025. And it was indexed to inflation. And this is an important thing to mention. A lot of these provisions, like I'm thinking AMT, alternative minimum tax, when it was first passed decades ago, was never indexed to inflation. So even though it doesn't make a big deal year over year, over decades, if something is not indexed to inflation, it can be it can have a negative impact to taxpayers. So it's nice that they did decide to index the child tax credit to inflation starting next year in 2026.
Yep. So another big one, kind of straightforward aspect is the SALT or the state and local income tax cap deduction rose to $40,000. Now, if you remember, this was previously capped at $10,000 for deduction on those taxes, but this is phased out on earnings over 500,000. This is a temporary change set to revert back to 10,000 in the year 2030. So just a note. So for the next 5-ish years or so, it will be at 40,000, but it is one of those temporary changes that will have a end date. The estate and lifetime gift tax exemption will increase to $15 million for individuals or $30 million for married couples, and was made permanent and will adjust for inflation. So this is a big change, sort of a rise to that estate and tax, because I believe prior it was at 13-inch and change. So a little bit larger increase on that. So now we will talk about some of the new aspects that have been added. One of the first ones is some seniors will now receive an additional deduction. So those filing with a standard deduction, this means you're not itemizing deductions in your tax return, over age 65 will receive an additional $6,000 deduction per filer. The deduction will begin to phase out at $75,000 for individuals and $150,000 for those who are married filing jointly. Now, this is a below the line deduction, meaning it does not impact your adjusted gross income or AGI, which is how Social Security taxation and Medicare premiums are calculated. This provision is also temporary just through 2028.
Yeah. So next campaign promise was no taxes on tips and overtime, if you remember that. So tipped and overtime workers will receive a deduction. So tips up to $25,000 can be deducted. This is limited to income of $150,000 for individuals and $300,000 for married filing jointly. But that is a deduction. So for overtime, the deduction is capped at $12,500 for individuals and $25,000 for couples, with the same income limits that I just mentioned on tips. And the deduction, it's important to remember that the deduction is for amounts that are considered that overtime. So if you are, let's just say you make $100,000 of income, but $10,000 of that is for overtime, it would be on that $10,000 delta, obviously not on your regular income. And then another new provision, that is temporary, by the way, because that's a campaign promise. So I want to mention that that is temporary. The next new addition is that some auto loans will be tax deductible up to $10,000 for new car purchases. This is for non-itemizers, which means, again, that you're taking that standard deduction. And cars do have to have final assembly in the US, and there are income limits with phase out. So it's between $100,000 and $149,000 for individuals, and between $200,000 and $249,000 for married filing jointly. And this is a temporary provision as well.
Yeah, that's one of those tricky ones. Like, was my car final assembly in
I know.
the US? Because you think about how cars are made these days, and this
Yeah.
part is done in this place, and that part's done someplace else. So it's a tricky one, but
Yeah.
good to note.
For sure. It's also interesting to think about, that $10,000, because it's gonna, you would have to buy a very expensive car to have that much interest in a year. But chances are, if you're buying a very expensive car, you're probably over the income limits to be able to deduct it in the first place. So that one was like a little bit of a head scratcher.
Yeah, this one feels a little bit more political, for lack of a better word, and sort of this US first exceptionalism. It feels more kind of just for the record than it actually will apply to most people.
Then it will be like a practical use case.
Right.
For sure.
Okay. So another one that was added is that EV and clean energy home improvement credits will end this year. For us EV drivers,
Sorry.
some some deadlines are September, others are end of this year. But when you pay and when it has to be placed into service vary too. So check the rules if this is of interest to you. So just remember of note, you will lose those credits this year. And then another addition is a capped benefit on itemized deductions. So this was introduced for the top tax bracket beginning in 2026. The benefit of itemized deductions is capped at 35% for those in the highest bracket, which is 37%, and capped at 32% for the expanded deduction for state and local taxes, which we just mentioned had now increased to $40,000. So there is a cap at 32 percent for those in that highest tax bracket at 37%.
Yeah, and this is the first time, as far as I can remember, I can't speak for like all of, history of tax law,
Hmm.
but this is the first time since I've been an advisor that I can remember that sort of distinction. So if you are in the highest tax bracket, this is something for you definitely to be aware of because this does go into place in 2026. So this may merit some more aggressive tax planning this
Hmm.
year in 2025, possibly with things like charitable contributions. So make sure that, if we're your advisor, we talk about it. If you have another advisor, you talk about it with him or her, and certainly loop in your CPA for some tax planning there.
Yeah, it's going to take a little bit more advanced planning going forward now for the super high income earners.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because there is a delta there.
Mhm.
So that is all we're going to cover for today in terms of the changes. But stay tuned because next week we will do a deep dive into some pretty exciting changes for 529 plans. I was excited about those changes. I feel like every time more flexibility gets introduced to 529 plans, that is a benefit. And then we're also going to talk more about the Trump accounts and how they work and what they are and, how to open one and that sort of thing. So stay tuned. Next week, we will do a deeper dive into that. And then we'll probably have one additional episode about the OVA with specific, tax planning strategies and whatnot. So we're probably going to have a few episodes about OVA because it is, quite a large change.
Yeah. So it's our goal to get as much information out about the changes in tax law to not just our clients, but our listeners, viewers, subscribers. So another thing I wanted to mention is that if you don't currently receive the Curo newsletter and you're interested, you can actually go to our website, curoprivatewealth.com, and click to subscribe because we'll also be sending out some information throughout the end of the year that way as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Great point. Thank you for mentioning that.
Of course.
All right, my dear. What do you have for a closing thought of the day?
Yeah, so I had the privilege of having dinner with one of our clients last night, and this has been a long time client. We worked with her for years, but I realized it was the first time that she and I had gotten together kind of outside of just our normal advisor client role, right? To have a casual dinner and to talk and catch up. So it was so interesting just kind of learning way more about how she started her business. She was a business owner and sold a business pretty successfully a few years ago, and learning how that came to be was super interested. But one of the things that came out of our conversation was just a chance to hear sort of firsthand some of the things that she was thinking about in her life, that she was concerned about, that she was worried about. So I got all of these sort of great ideas for maybe content and things that we could be doing to help our clients. But one of the things that she mentioned, and it's not the first time I've heard it from a client, was this idea of living outside of the US for part of the year. And if it's something that she could, readily pull off. And she was like, I just been thinking about it for years. And then now it kind of seems more pressing. And I realized that this is a topic that's coming up for people. So I just started thinking like maybe what is triggering this. But I think a lot of people just feel so much uncertainty and anxiety just given the economic, political, and environment in the country now. And I think people just feel like maybe it's time to consider something else. Again, I've always told you that I would love to live
Hmm.
part of the year, out of the year. You haven't signed off on that for me yet to be
No,
able.
not letting you go. Sorry. Denied.
Yeah. But it also made me feel just super motivated for this idea of being a global citizen. I think I've shared that with you
Mhm.
before, right? This idea that you could live anywhere, travel anywhere, speak some of the language, move around on the public transit systems. Like I just love that idea. So it started getting me thinking about maybe some things and activities and content we could bring to our listeners and our viewers. So if you're one of those people and it's something that you're also interested in, send us an email and let
Mhm.
us know if it's something you might be interested in hearing, because she's probably the third client who has mentioned
Yeah.
it to me in recent history.
Yeah.
So again, you can always reach us at podcast@curoprivatewealth.com, but drop us a note or tag us in something on Instagram and let us know if it's something you've also been thinking about noodling in your head. But so that's just my thought today because it's been coming up a lot lately.
Yeah. No, that's not surprising. I think of you as a global citizen already. Like, I don't
No.
think you have to necessarily, live overseas, but you're so good with language and you've always been interested, right?
Hmm.
In foreign languages and you love travel and like love exploring cultures and stuff. So I already think of you as a global citizen, but that's
Aw,
really cool.
thank
Yeah,
you.
for
Yeah.
sure. Absolutely. All right, my closing thought is actually for you, Atrisa. Well, I was thinking
Uh-oh.
about you when I no, it's good. It's good.
Okay.
It's about a golfer. So
Oh, okay.
obviously our frequent viewers and listeners know that Atrisa is the golfer of this couple. So I was reading an article about Scotty Schaefer, who is
Mhm.
arguably, I mean, I don't even think it's arguably, I think it's like a
No, I don't
fact
think you
that
can
he's
argue
the
it.
number one golfer and has been for the last 2 years. But as I understand, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because I don't follow golf, but as I understand, even though he has been number one over the last 2 years, up until relatively recently, he really struggled with his putting game.
Hmm.
Accurate? Okay. So
I
he
mean,
would,
struggling is
struggled is
subjective.
probably, yeah, struggling is probably a little bit of a stretch, but there
Right.
were there were like tournaments that he didn't quite win, and it was
Hmm.
because of his game on the green. So I think you could reasonably say
Yes.
that, that was a struggle because if he's not
Yes.
winning, which is his goal, then, there's a problem. And so what he did is he figured out how to putt and he ended up switching from a blade putter to a mallet putter. This is
Hmm.
literally like Chinese to me, so whatever. The point is, here is somebody who is the number one golfer in the world and but still has just a little issue, right? Like a little thing
Hmm.
that he needed to fix that was negatively impacting his game. And to me, as an outsider who's not a golfer, like it seems like a pretty straightforward switch. But also, what I read was that not only did he decide to switch the tool, but when he switched the tool, he felt a mindset shift because I think he was starting to identify as a bad putter because he was having
Hmm.
negative experiences with putting. And when he made the very small switch of the actual tool of the putter, he also switched his mindset at the same time to say, like, I'm not going to have issues with putting anymore. I'm going to be a great putter. Like, I'm going to improve my game. And so I thought that was really fascinating, interesting, and also applicable to so many things in life. Like, we could feel like we're on the top of our game, whether that's professionally, personally, and yet there's probably something that we're not quite doing right. A slight tweak, a slight, whether it's a mindset or set shift or whether it's a tool that we could just tweak on the margins a little bit and have such massive improvements to our results. So as I was reading the article, of course, I was thinking about you because anytime I read about golf, or which is not frequently, to be clear, but anything golf related, I'm always thinking about you. And then also, I just thought how applicable that is
Yeah.
to so many things in life. So that is my closing thought of the day.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, Scotty Scheffler is a phenom, I would say. Like and the other thing, and I don't know how much it talked about his mindset, but the other thing when you see interviews with him or listen to him talk, it's his approach to the game. It's almost like golf is secondary. Like for him to be so good, it's almost like he still considers golf a hobby. Like he's family first. He doesn't like prioritize it over spending time with his children or, with his wife. And he comes at it in a very, what I think is a healthy mindset. Cause I've said it
Mhm.
before, golf is such a mind game. And
Mhm.
as soon as you go into a negative space, it just spirals out of control and
Mhm.
everything just goes awry. So being in a really positive mindset is helpful. And just listening to him, I love the way he approaches the game, the way he thinks about it. I just always admire him for that. But I agree, just that sort of like unlocking or that tweak of certain things in your hobbies or tools or mindset, the way you see the world can unlock, really big potential sometimes. And it's also why it's important that you be mindful of the language about yourself, right? Like that you mentioned
Yes.
him identifying as a bad putter. So it's why
Mhm.
I started calling myself a golfer, even though what I do could probably rarely be identified as golf.
No, you are a golfer. You are a global citizen and you are a golfer.
Yes, for sure. But no, I love that. It's a great reminder.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad. I
Yeah.
thought you would enjoy that one because it's about golf. So
Yeah. my
for
my
you,
new
darling.
identity, right? My new identity, like
Exactly. You
overwhelming
yeah.
my life.
No, but it's a good thing. Are you gonna be able to golf on vacay?
I thought about it, but I don't think so. One, because I don't want to travel
Yeah,
with
with
my
your
clubs.
clubs.
Yeah, and two, it's because I'm going with my sister, and she'll tag along with me, but she's not super into it, so I don't want her to feel obligated to have to do
Yeah,
that
that makes
on our
sense.
vacation. Yeah,
That makes sense. We'll have a phenomenal, I'm sure obviously we'll see each other and talk, but
yeah,
have a phenomenal vacation.
looking
And
forward to it.
that, yeah, you deserve it. Deserve to get away and some R&R for sure. Well, that wraps us for the week, everybody. Thanks again for tuning in and come back next week for more OBA updates. And until then,
Live richly.
thanks again for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to subscribe and share it with someone who might benefit from it. Friendly reminder that this is for informational purposes only. For additional information, please visit us at www.curoprivatewealth.com. Until next time, live richly.